They call it the Pink Palace. It sits on Sunset Boulevard like a carefully frosted wedding cake. It is the color of bubblegum, the color of innocence. To the outside world, it is the most photographed hotel on earth, a backdrop for 1 million Instagram selfies, a sanctuary where the swimming pool music plays on an endless loop and the towels are always warm. But colors can be deceiving. If you scratch the pink paint, you don't find bricks. You find secrets. You find the wreckage of marriages, the whispers of the mafia, the hushed cover-ups of suspicious deaths, and a moral compromise that exposed the deepest hypocrisy of the movie industry. This is not just a story about a hotel. It is a story about a place that was built on a bean field, became the Vatican of the movie industry, and eventually sold its soul to a foreign dictatorship. This is the story of how the Beverly Hills Hotel survived the Great Depression, the death of the studio system, and the changing tides of morality. It survived by becoming a beautiful tomb for the truth. To understand the power of this place, you have to understand that it wasn't supposed to exist. If you traveled back to this exact spot in 1911, you wouldn't see Ferraris or film stars. You would see dust. You would see a field of lima beans baking under the relentless California sun. The man responsible for this transformation was Burton Green. He was an oil man, a speculator, a man who chased black gold. He bought this land convinced that beneath the beans lay a fortune in oil. He drilled and he drilled and he drilled, but he found nothing but water. Most men would have cut their losses, but Green was a visionary, or perhaps just desperate. He realized that if he couldn't sell the oil beneath the ground, he would sell the land on top of it. He decided to build a city from scratch for the wealthy. But a city needs a heart. It needs an anchor. It needs a reason to visit the middle of nowhere. So he built the hotel first. It was a gamble of massive proportions. The hotel didn't serve the city. The city of Beverly Hills was built to serve the hotel. When architect Elmer Gray designed the main building, he made a choice that would define the brand for a century. He chose a specific shade of pink. It wasn't an accident. He knew that against the brown dust of the California hills and the deep blue sky, that pink would pop. It was designed to be photogenic before cameras were even in every pocket. It was the first influencer destination 100 years before the internet. When it opened in 1912, it was empty. It sat on the hill like a folly. But Green knew something about the rich that the rest of us forget. They don't want access. They want exclusion. By building it far away from the noise of Los Angeles, he created a fortress. And slowly, the fortress began to fill up. As Hollywood transitioned from a dusty outpost to the entertainment capital of the world, the stars needed a place to live. But not just any place. They needed a place where they could be bad. The genius of the Beverly Hills Hotel wasn't the lobby, it was the backyard, the 21 bungalows. These weren't hotel rooms, they were separate houses hidden behind thick banana leaves and palm trees. No hallways, no prying eyes, no paparazzi. If the lobby was for being seen, the bungalows were for sinning. This is where the hotel's famous Code of Silence was born. The staff were trained to be invisible. They saw everything, and they said nothing. Bungalow 5 became the personal home of Elizabeth Taylor. She spent 6 of her 8 honeymoons there. Think about that. She returned to the same rooms with different men over and over again. Why? Because the hotel was the only place that treated her scandals with the indifference of a changing of the guard. To the hotel, it didn't matter who the husband was. It only mattered that the check cleared. Then there was the dark prince of Hollywood, Howard Hughes. The eccentric billionaire booked 4 bungalows at once, not to party, but to hide. As his mental state deteriorated, he treated the hotel as a sanitarium. He would have roast beef sandwiches delivered to a specific tree in the garden in the middle of the night so no one would see him eat. He ordered the staff to never speak to him, never look at him. For Hughes, the Pink Palace wasn't a vacation, it was a bunker. But the silence covered darker things than affairs and eccentricities. In the Golden Age, if a star overdosed or a fight turned violent, you didn't call the police, you called the manager. There are stories, some whispered, some confirmed, of fixers arriving before the ambulances, of bodies being moved, of doctors being called to certify natural causes when the causes were anything but natural. The Pink Palace was a fortress. As long as you could pay the bill, your secrets were safe behind the stucco walls. The hotel wasn't just selling luxury, it was selling immunity.
Every kingdom has a throne room. For Hollywood, it was the Polo Lounge. By the 1940s and 50s, this wasn't just a restaurant. It was the unofficial stock exchange of the movie business. If you weren't eating here, you weren't working. The layout of the room was a map of power. There was a strict hierarchy. Where you sat determined your worth in the industry. The booths were wired for telephones, a novelty at the time, so executives could seal deals between courses. A call taken in booth 1 meant you ran the town. A call taken at a table near the kitchen meant you were finished. The man who orchestrated this theater was Hernando Cortright. He was the manager who understood that power loves proximity to power. He created an environment where a handshake in the Polo Lounge was more binding than a contract signed at MGM. But power attracts predators. The Polo Lounge wasn't just for producers. It became a favorite haunt of the mafia. Why? Because the mob loves the same things movie stars love: luxury, discretion, and a place to wash money. Men like Sam Giancana didn't look out of place here. The line between the legitimate movie business and organized crime blurred right here over martini glasses and the soft lighting of the lounge. The hotel didn't discriminate. Money was money. Whether it came from the box office or the gambling racket, it all spent the same at the Pink Palace. Nothing lasts forever. By the 1970s, the studio system had collapsed. A new generation of filmmakers, the counterculture, didn't want to hang out in the stuffy, expensive haunts of their parents. The Beverly Hills Hotel began to fade. It looked tired. The paint was peeling. The carpets were worn. It was becoming a relic, a museum piece of a bygone era. It was saved by Marvin Davis, a billionaire oil man who bought the property and poured $100 million into a restoration. He brought the shine back. He made the pink pinker, the green greener. He restored the glamour. But in 1987, Davis made a decision that would plant a ticking time bomb in the foundation of the hotel. He sold it. The buyer wasn't a hotel chain. It wasn't a corporation. It was the Sultan of Brunei, one of the richest men on earth, an absolute monarch with a personal fortune built on oil. He bought the Pink Palace as a trophy, a crown jewel for his collection called the Dorchester Collection. For nearly 30 years, nobody cared. The Sultan was just a distant checkbook. The champagne kept flowing, the Oscars parties kept happening. Hollywood, the bastion of liberal values, the industry that preached human rights and equality, was happily pouring millions of dollars a year into the pocket of a dictator. Ignorance was bliss. The celebrities didn't ask where the money went, and the hotel didn't tell them. It was a perfect symbiotic relationship. Until 2014. In 2014, the silence broke. The Sultan of Brunei announced the implementation of a new phase of Sharia criminal law in his country. The new laws were medieval. They were brutal. They included death by stoning for adultery. They included amputation of limbs for theft. And, most shockingly to the West, they included death by stoning for homosexuality. Hollywood woke up.
The industry that prides itself on LGBTQ+ rights realized it was funding a regime that wanted to kill gay people. The reaction was swift. It was loud. It was a boycott. Jay Leno led the charge. Ellen DeGeneres tweeted to her millions of followers. The Motion Picture and Television Fund, which had held its famous night before the Oscars party at the hotel for decades, pulled out. The impact was visible immediately. The Polo Lounge, usually impossible to get into, sat empty. The red carpet gathered dust. The hotel lost tens of millions of dollars in revenue. It was a PR nightmare. The brand was toxic. To be seen at the Beverly Hills Hotel was social suicide. But here is the tragedy of the boycott. Who suffered? Did the Sultan suffer? To a man worth $20 billion, the losses at one hotel were a rounding error. It was less than pocket change. He didn't even feel it. The people who suffered were the waiters, the maids, the valets, the cooks, the working-class Americans who relied on tips to feed their families found themselves standing in empty dining rooms. And the laws in Brunei? They didn't change. The Sultan didn't back down. He simply waited. He knew something about Hollywood that the activists didn't want to admit. He knew that their outrage was temporary. Moral outrage is exhausting. Luxury is addictive. Slowly, quietly, the boycott began to crumble. It didn't end with a bang. It ended with a whisper. First, the tourists came back. They didn't know about the politics, or they didn't care. They just wanted the photo. They wanted to see the famous wallpaper. Then the lunch crowd returned. People reasoned, well, I'm just buying a salad. I'm not supporting the regime. Then came the new generation, the influencers, the TikTok stars, the reality TV royalty. For this generation, the aesthetic is everything. The pink walls, the green leaves, the perfect lighting. These were commodities more valuable than political stance. By the time the pandemic ended, the amnesia was complete. The hotel was full again. The prices were higher than ever. The Polo Lounge was packed. The laws in Brunei are still on the books. The Sultan still owns the hotel. Every time someone pays $40 for a McCarthy salad or $2,000 for a night in a bungalow, that money flows into the accounts of the Brunei Investment Agency. But Hollywood simply moved on. The convenience of the location, the nostalgia of the history, and the beauty of the architecture outweighed the lives of the people in Brunei. The Beverly Hills Hotel is a survivor. It survived the Great Depression. It survived the decline of the studio system. It survived the death of its stars. And it survived the morality of its own customers. It stands today as a testament to the power of branding. It proves a cynical truth about our culture. We love a cause, but we love comfort more. We love justice, but we love nostalgia more. The Pink Palace is beautiful. It is iconic. It is a masterpiece of design. But it is also a monument to our ability to look the other way. It is a place where history is polished until it shines, and the ugly truths are swept under the thick green carpets. As the sun sets over Sunset Boulevard, turning the pink walls a deep, burning orange, the hotel looks magical. The cars pull up, the cameras flash, the music plays, and the secrets remain, buried deep beneath the bean field, safe inside the most successful trap ever built. This is the Beverly Hills Hotel, beautiful, timeless, and completely heartless.